yesterday we talked about reference angles, right? If we're in the first quadrant, what's the reference angle? Just the angle given. If you're in the second quadrant, how do you find the reference angle? 180 minus. If you're in the third quadrant, angle minus 180. Perfect. If you're in the fourth quadrant, 360 minus. Okay, so what we're going to do today is instead of finding the trig values, you guys are going to find the reference angles. We're just going to go backwards. It's super duper easy. I'm going to do this first example, and then I'm going to show you how I believe is the easiest way for you to figure out these problems, okay? So this question says, find the angle or find theta over the intervals 0 to 360. Okay, first of all, is 0 included? Yes. Is 360 included? No. How do you know 360 is not included? Because it has a parenthesis. Okay, so 360 cannot be an answer. Okay, I'm telling you that. It cannot be an answer the way that this is written. Cannot be an answer. And again, why is that? Because it's a parenthesis. That means, ooh, that's not included. So we're going to find the reference angles. There's only 3 reference angles that we are going, or not 3, but there's 3 special angles that we used yesterday. What were those 3 special angles that we were using? 30, 60, 45, right? Those are the only 3 that you're going to have to deal with. We're going to use those to find the angle given, okay? So watch this. This is saying cosine of theta equals negative square root of 2 over 2. Think about our 2 triangles, 30, 60, 90, and a 45, 45, 90. What's the only triangle that has a square root of 2? So you know right now what the reference angle is for this. What's the reference angle that for this trig function? It's 45. You know that because it's a square root of 2. Anytime you have a square root of 2, guys, you are dealing with a 45, 45, 90. Write it down. Anytime you have a square root of 2, you're dealing with the 45, 45, 90. So what we're going to do is we're going to work backwards. You can put the 45 anywhere. It doesn't matter, in either corner. What is cosine? What over what? X over R or? No. Adjacent over hypotenuse, okay? The way that our triangle is drawn, we're not on we're not on our coordinate plane. So adjacent over hypotenuse. So think about this, guys. Here's my 45. What's the adjacent side? 1 over the hypotenuse is, which when we rationalize it becomes square root of 2 over 2. Do you see why if you have a square root of 2 in your answer, it's always going to be a 45, 45, 90? All right, so now you guys are like, well, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, we're going to go backwards, guys. Let's talk about our all students take calculus. This is cosine. What? What kind of cosine? Negative. So where is this where are these angles not? It's not in 1 because everything's positive there, and it's not where? In 4. So you're always going to get 2 answers if it's just negative or positive. If it says plus minus, you'll get 4 answers. So we know the reference angle is 45. We know the reference angle is 45. So I'm going to say, okay, if it's in the second quadrant, 180 minus 45. Isn't that how we find the, okay, so what's 180 minus 45? So one of these angles could be 135. There's one of my answers. And I know it could be in the third quadrant. What's the rule for the third quadrant? Angle minus the reference. So can we just take our reference angle and add 180 to it? Okay, so what's 45 plus 180? 225. That's the other angle that this could be. So we're going to go through 5 examples, and once I get to the 5th one, you guys will be like, oh, this is so easy. We're just working backwards, okay? Yes, sir. Okay, good question. If it's a positive trig function they give you, it's 2 answers. If it's a negative, there's 2 answers. What if they give you plus or minus? It's going to be 4. All right, so go to the next examples. Look at all 4 of these. Do any of these have a square root of 2 in them? No. So you know all 4 of these are dealing with which triangle? 30, 60, 90. What I want you to do at the top here is we're going to draw 2 30, 60, 90s. We're going to draw 2 exact same 30, 60, 90s. So look, I'm going to, I thought you were like giving me the phone to talk to somebody. I'm going to draw, it doesn't matter where, I'm just going to draw them each the same. So I'm putting 30 in the top left, 60 in the bottom right. Okay, remind me again what the pattern is. What goes across from 30? 1, so put it. What goes across from 60? What? Square root of 3, thank you. And then what's your hypotenuse? Perfect. Now, I want you to circle in one triangle 30 and in one triangle 60 because the trig functions change depending on the angle, correct? Okay, so this is how we're going to figure this out. You are going, yes?
Wait, doesn't matter where you put the 30 and the 60 or
no? No, just as long as the 1 is across from the 30 and the square root of 3 is across from the 60. So this is how I personally work these out. Again, if you have a different method or your tutor does something else, that's fine. I'm going to write down both angles. I'm going to write down 30 and 60. So here's 30 degrees and here's 60 degrees, right? What is cosine? Adjacent over hypotenuse. So guys, what is the cosine of 30? Look at your angle that you circled 30. It's the square root of 3, the adjacent, over 2. Isn't that what we're looking for? Okay, so you know what angle you're talking about. You're talking about your 30 degree. So you just found the reference angle. Now we're going to work backwards to figure out what the two angles that we're actually started off with. So I have all students take calculus. Cosine is negative. So where do I know these two are not? It's not here, and it's not here. So I know the two angles that we are starting off with, like we did yesterday, the angles that we're looking for are in the second quadrant and in the third quadrant. If you are given the reference angle, we're working backwards. So I'm going to say, okay, well, if we're in the second quadrant, it's going to be 180 minus the reference angle. So 180 minus 30 gives me. So one of my angles is 150. If we're in the third quadrant, it's angle minus the reference. So if we work backwards, I'm sorry, 180, it's the angle minus 180, right? I said that backwards, I'm sorry. So if we're trying to work backwards, we're going to do what with the 180? We're going to add it. So we're going to say 180 plus 30, and I get what? 210. There's your two answers. What would happen if the angle was in the first quadrant? It's whatever the reference angle is. It's either 30, 60, or 45. What about if it was in the fourth quadrant? 360 minus the angle. The only one you have to add is when you're in the third because the angle would be first. So let's look at the next one. Set it up the exact same way. I'm going to do 30 and I'm going to do 60. Why am I not worrying about the 45, 45, 90? Because there's not a square root of 2. Good. So let's talk about what tangent is. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, correct? So start with your 30. Look at your 30. What's the opposite? What's the adjacent? 1 over square root of 3. So I rationalize that gives me square root of 3 over 3. Is that what I'm looking for? No. So let's do tangent of 60. What's tangent of 60? Square root of 3 over what? 1. Is that what I'm looking for? Yes. So you know 60 is your reference angle. So where are we looking? All students take calculus. I'm looking where tangent is what? Negative. So what two quadrants am I crossing out? 1 and 3. So in the second quadrant, what's the rule for finding reference angles? 180 minus... Okay, so I'm going to say 180 minus 60 gives me, okay, so one of the angles that we started off with is 120. Then what's the rule in the fourth quadrant? 360 minus the angle, so this one is 300. Where's the only quadrant that you have to add instead? The third, because the rule is angle minus, so to go backwards you have to add. That's why. All right, how many answers am I going to have here, guys? 4. Why are we going to have 4? Because it says plus or minus. So let's go through. Same thing. Write your 30. Write your 60. Are they asking us for sine, cosine, or tangent? No, they're asking us for a reciprocal function. Go ahead and tell yourself, what's the reciprocal of cosecant? Okay. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so we're dealing with what? Hypotenuse over opposite. Tell yourself as much information as possible. So let's just find the cosecant in 30. So it's going to be hypotenuse over opposite. What's the hypotenuse? 2 over opposite is 1. Okay, so 2 over 1. Is that what we're looking for? No. So let's go to 60. Hypotenuse, 2 over square root of 3. 2 over square root of 3. Do you guys have to go ahead and rationalize and all that? But can you already tell, oh, 60 is what we're looking for? Yes. I mean, if you want to go ahead and rationalize and say, oh, yeah, look, it is this one. 2 square root of 3 over 3. You can if you want to. But if you, at that point, you go, oh, it's the 60, you're good to go. So now, it's all students take calculus. But think about it, guys. It wants everywhere where it's positive and everywhere where it's negative. So I want all 4 quadrants, correct? So in quadrant 1, it's just 60. Good. In quadrant 2, it's what? It's 120 because you do 180 minus 60 and you get 120. In quadrant 3, what are we doing? How'd you get that? 180 plus 60, so you get 240. And then in quadrant 3, it's 360 minus 60, which gives us 300. Perfect. Is this kind of fun? Well, I know I'm a nerd. Leave me alone. All right, last one. Let's set it up. I have 30 here, 60 here. Remind yourself what tangent is. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So I'm looking at 30. Look at my 30. Opposite 1 over adjacent is square root of 3. So 1 over the square root of 3. What happens when I rationalize that? It becomes a square root of 3 over 3. Is that what we're looking for? Yes. Okay. So all students take calculus. I want tangent where it's positive or negative? Positive. So what am I crossing off? Crossing off 2, crossing off 4. And we said we're talking about the 30-degree angle. So in quadrant 1, what's your answer? Just 30. Good. And then in quadrant 3, what's your answer? 180 plus 30, which gives you 210. Perfect. All right, that's it. Let me go, hold on. I think I wrote myself an extra note here. Yeah, let's just write this down. For those of you who are giving me that look like, what is she talking about? Right? For a 45, 45, 90. How do you know you're using the 45, 45, 90? The one that has the square root of 2. Okay, so think about it, guys. In the first quadrant, what's your reference angle? And what's your also given angle if it's 45, 45, 90? 45. It's 45. Good. In the second quadrant, what's the rule for a second quadrant? You do 180 minus. So 180 minus 45. What's your answer going to be? 135. Good. In the third quadrant, it's going to be 180 plus. So you get 225. And then in the fourth quadrant, it's 360 minus 45, and you get 315. If you want to go ahead and set that up, then then it's super, hold on one sec, then it's super easy because there's only one answer. For 45, 45, 90, think about it, because it's not like in the 30, 60, 90 where if 30, the cosine's different than it is at 60. 45 on the top and 45 on the bottom is going to give you the same answer. So there's only 4 possibilities for reference angles in a 45, 45, 90. Hunter, question? Are we good? Yes, sir.
How do you know which sections to cross out when we
It depends if it's positive or negative. Like, say they wanted, that's a good question. Say they said, okay, I want where the cosine is positive. So what would you cross off? Where is cosine positive? In 1 and 4, right? What? So you would cross off 2 and 3. If they said where the tangent is positive, you'd cross off 2 and 4. Tangent is positive in where? 1 and 3. So you cross off where it's not. Cross off where it can't be. You like eliminate. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Wait, so like I tried following what you did, but like with the X and Y, it didn't work. Like for some reason, I don't know why.
It'll work with X and Y if you draw your triangle from the origin.
which one yet.
So you'd have to draw two like this, watch. So you can go, here's the 60-degree one, here's the 30-degree one. So this would be 1, 2, square root of 3. And this would be square root of 3, 1, and 2. Which is fine, you can do it that way too. And then, go ahead. Then your x and y are exactly how you would look. If that makes sense to you, that's perfect, you can do it that way. Your homework is to do 12 through 16. All right, your homework is to do 12 through 16. It's going to be due Tuesday morning. You could probably get most of it done now, so you don't have to do it over the weekend. And then we're going to start by 4 on.
You want to go out to Oregon to class?
No, ma'am.